I want to talk to you today about something that don't always get celebrated, don't always get acknowledged, but it holds power stronger than words. It's silence. See, the world will tell you the loudest one in the room got the most influence. They'll say the person with the mic, the one talking the most, is the leader. But I learned different. Learned that silence ain't weakness, it's discipline. Silence is the space where ideas form, where strategies breathe, where real transformation begins. Your silence changes everything. Think about it. When you pull back your energy from places that don't serve you, people feel it. When you stop feeding negativity, the whole vibration of your environment shifts. When you stop explaining yourself to everybody that don't want to understand you, you reclaim power. That's silence. That's control. It ain't about being passive. It's about being precise. Most people confuse silence with absence, but silence is presence at the highest level. Silence says, I don't need to announce everything because my moves gone speak for themselves. Silence says, I got patience, I got vision, I know timing is everything. Silence says, you can't pull me into your chaos because I move on my own frequency. And when you start moving like that, you change the whole game around you. You ever notice how silence makes people uncomfortable? That's because silence is a mirror. It forces truth to come out. In an argument, silence exposes the one who really has no foundation. In business, silence keeps the leverage on your side. In life, silence creates clarity in a world that's always trying to drown you with noise. Silence is what allows you to hear your own voice, your intuition, your spirit. And in that silence, you find direction. You find out what really matters. You see the distractions for what they are. The moment you act from that space, your choices hit harder, your steps carry more weight, your silence changes everything because it makes every word, every move, every decision mean more. See, the ones who master silence understand that energy don't gotta be shouted, it just gotta be felt. You don't gotta broadcast your next step to validate it. You don't gotta respond to every challenge to prove you strong. Sometimes the loudest response is no response at all. Sometimes the biggest statement you can make is letting your silence reshape the room. Here's the thing, when you practice silence with intention, you ain't just protecting your peace, you building your future. You teaching people how to treat you. You reminding them that your presence got value beyond words. And in the long run, the world remembers that. They remember the person who didn't fold under pressure, who didn't waste energy on nonsense, who let their actions paint the picture. That's why I'm saying it clear. Your silence ain't empty. It's strategy, it's focus, it's power. And when you learn how to use it, your silence changes everything. Silence is discipline, not weakness. Too many people misunderstand that. They see somebody quiet, somebody who doesn't react right away, and they label it as soft, scared, or unsure. But the truth is, silence requires a strength most people don't have. It takes discipline to hold your tongue when emotions are telling you to speak. It takes discipline to keep your energy contained when you feel the pull, to let it out. Silence is like control over your own fire. You don't let it burn reckless. You let it burn intentional. That's power. Weakness is spilling every thought, every emotion without filter just because you can't hold it. Discipline is having that same storm inside you, but choosing the right time, the right place, the right purpose to let it out. Silence is that self-control, and it makes you sharper than the loudest person in the room. Think about discipline in every area of life, whether it's health, money, relationships, or your craft. The ones who win long-term are the ones who learn to control impulses. And silence is just another form of impulse control. It's knowing that not everything deserves a reaction. Everything deserves your words. Sometimes silence speaks louder than anger, louder than explanation, louder than defense. Discipline is realizing your words are currency, and you don't spend them cheap. You invest them where they multiply. Silence is that filter, that restraint, that decision to not waste what you've earned. When you look at history, at leaders, at visionaries, you'll notice a pattern. They all knew how to use silence. They knew silence wasn't weakness, it was patience. They knew silence gave them time to think, time to read the room, time to understand. Most conflicts in life escalate because people lack that discipline. Someone talks, someone reacts, words stack on words, emotions get heated and it spirals. But silence interrupts that pattern. Silence says, I don't need to meet you at your level. I'll stay at mine. That's discipline. It's not about ignoring. It's about choosing wisely what deserves your energy. On the streets, silence can save lives. Talking too much, revealing too much can put you at risk. In business, silence can secure deals. The person who can sit still, not rush, not over-explain, often comes out with the advantage. In relationships, silence gives space for clarity, for listening, for understanding. And in personal growth, silence is the discipline that lets you connect with yourself, with your inner voice without distraction. Weakness is moving off impulse. Discipline is moving off intention. Silence is the difference between the two. Most people are addicted to noise. They want to fill every gap with words, with sound, with distraction. That's because silence forces them to face themselves. But the disciplined embrace silence. They understand that silence is where growth happens. When you hold silence, you're training yourself to stay calm under pressure. You're training yourself to wait for the right opportunity. You're training yourself to hear what others miss. Silence sharpens perception. It slows things down so you can see details others overlook. That ain't weakness. That's strength at the highest level. Discipline means consistency. It means doing what others can't sustain. Silence practiced consistently becomes a tool that separates you from the rest. It's like fasting, denying yourself something to build strength. When you stay silent, you're fasting from validation, from ego, from the urge to always prove yourself. You're proving something bigger. You don't need to announce everything to give it value. Weakness is loud because it wants approval. Discipline is quiet because it already knows its worth. There's also a spiritual side to silence. In silence, prayers are heard. In silence, visions come clear. In silence, intuition speaks louder than outside voices. Discipline is protecting that space, guarding it, making sure you don't let the world drown it out. Weakness is letting outside noise control your inner world. Discipline is making sure your inner world controls how you respond to the outside. Silence creates that line. A lot of people think strength is reaction. Somebody challenges you, you clap back. Somebody doubts you, you explain. Somebody attacks you, you defend. But the truth is, strength is restraint. It's knowing that you don't got to prove yourself every time someone pulls at you. It's the discipline to let your work, your actions, your results do the talking. Silence makes your moves undeniable because it strips away the unnecessary talk. Weakness wastes time arguing. Discipline conserves energy for building. Look at nature. The strongest forces move in silence. The earth turns without noise. Seeds grow underground before anyone sees them. Rivers carve valleys over centuries without a word. Silence is the language of strength because it's patient, it's steady, it's consistent. Weakness is loud, quick, and desperate. Discipline is silent, focused, and certain. And when you understand that, you stop underestimating the power of holding your tongue, the power of sitting still, the power of not giving everything away at once. The discipline knows silence is part of strategy. When you hold silence, you create mystery, you create anticipation, you create space where others reveal themselves. In conversations, silence pressures the other person to fill the gap, and often they reveal more than they intended. In negotiations, silence makes people uncomfortable, and in their rush to speak, they give up leverage. In conflicts, silence disarms tension because nothing feeds fire like more fire. And in personal battles, silence gives you the distance to step back and decide your next move with clarity instead of chaos. It's easy to talk. Anybody can talk. But silence takes strength. It's unnatural for most people to just hold space, to resist the urge to stay disciplined. That's why silence is a mark of maturity. Children talk without filter, without pause. Adults who grow, who learn, discipline themselves. They know silence has value. They know silence is gold, not emptiness. So when you hear silence is discipline, not weakness, remember, it's about control. It's about patience. It's about power. It's about choosing to move when it's time, not when emotion pushes you. It's about understanding that silence isn't the absence of a response. It is the response. And in a world addicted to noise, that discipline makes you stand out without even trying. Silence shifts energy and reclaims power. There's a force in silence that most people don't understand until they see it play out in real life. Energy is everything. How you carry yourself, how you speak, how you respond, how you move in a room. When you choose silence, you shift the energy around you in ways that words can't. Words can create noise, but silence creates weight. It demands attention. It changes dynamics. It flips control without you even raising your voice. The loudest one in the room might get noticed, but the one who stays silent makes people lean in. That silence is magnetic because it's unpredictable. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what they're planning. And that unknown becomes power. When you're silent in a heated moment, the energy changes. People expect you to react, to match fire with fire, to throw your words back. But when you don't, the other person feels that absence and it unsettles them. They start questioning themselves, their position, their strength. Your silence forces them to face their own energy without the distraction of yours. That's where power shifts, because you're not giving away control. You're not letting their chaos dictate your response. You're reclaiming power by holding it, by not letting it leak into arguments that don't deserve it. Silence also shifts the energy inside you. When you stop feeding negativity with constant responses, you create room for clarity. Instead of reacting to everything, you start observing. Instead of being pulled in every direction, you anchor yourself. That stillness allows you to feel your own energy stronger. You notice the difference between what drains you and what fuels you. And once you notice, you can choose where to place your focus. That choice is power, because attention is one of the most valuable resources we have. Where your attention goes, energy flows. If you waste it on distractions, you lose. If you direct it with discipline, you win. Silence gives you the chance to redirect it with purpose. Think about relationships, friendships, business deals. When you stop over-explaining yourself, when you stop trying to convince people of your value, energy flips. You're no longer begging for understanding, no longer chasing approval. You stand in your silence and let them figure it out. People respect what they can't easily access. They value what isn't thrown at them freely. Silence reclaims power by teaching others that your energy is not on demand, not something they can tap whenever they please. It sets boundaries without you having to announce them. In leadership, silence is a tool that separates the strong from the weak. A leader who knows when to be silent commands more authority than one who constantly fills the air with words. Silence allows others to speak. Silence makes space for truth to emerge. Silence makes every word you do choose to speak carry more weight. The energy in a team, a room, or a movement can shift when the leader simply pauses and holds silence. That pause creates gravity, and gravity pulls attention, focus, and respect. On a personal level, silence can reclaim power from your past. Too many people let old narratives control their present, stories told about them, mistakes they made, gossip, doubt, criticism. But when you stop responding to those narratives, when you go silent on the noise of the past, you reclaim your story. You stop feeding the old energy, and by doing so, you shift into a new one. Your silence says, that chapter is closed, and without you arguing or defending yourself, the power of that past energy weakens. There's also a deeper spiritual current in this. Energy moves through silence in ways words can't capture. When you meditate, when you pray, when you sit still, you feel energy in a different form. You start noticing the vibration of your thoughts, the weight of your emotions, the pull of your intentions. That silence becomes a channel for renewal. It recharges you in a way constant talking never could. It's like plugging your spirit back into the source. That recharge is power reclaimed, power that might have been scattered in conversations, arguments, or distractions. Silence gathers it back to you. In business, silence is leverage. When negotiating, the person who can hold silence longest often wins. That silence forces the other side to reveal more, to fill the gap, to expose their hand. In that space, you gather information, you watch body language, you feel the shift in tone. That's energy you can't pick up when you're talking nonstop. Silence reclaims power because it lets you see the full picture before you move. You're not rushing to react, you're letting the moment unfold until it's clear where the advantage is. On the streets, silence can mean survival. Loose talk can put you in danger, can compromise your moves, can give enemies leverage. But when you master silence, you keep your power protected. Nobody can use what you never gave away. Your silence shifts the energy because it keeps people guessing. And uncertainty is power because people fear what they can't predict. Energy is contagious. If you argue with someone who's angry, you absorb that anger. If you explain yourself to someone who doubts you, you start to carry that doubt. But when you choose silence, you break the cycle. You don't let their energy infect yours. You shift the room by staying grounded, and in that groundedness, you reclaim your control. You decide what energy you allow in and what energy you keep out. That choice is where true power lies. Silence is not passive. It's active. It's intentional. It's not about avoiding. It's about redirecting. It's a conscious decision to let energy move differently. And every time you choose silence over noise, you reclaim a little more of yourself. You prove that your power isn't in reacting, it's in choosing. And that choice to hold silence, to shift energy, to reclaim power. That's the mark of someone who truly understands control. Silence exposes truth like a mirror. When words are taken away, when noise is removed, what's left is raw reality. Silence reflects back what's really there, without the cover of excuses, explanations, or distractions. That's why silence makes so many people uncomfortable. Because in that space, you can't hide behind talk. You can't disguise insecurity with arguments. You can't mask weakness with volume. Silence strips away the performance and puts everything in plain sight. The mirror doesn't lie, and silence is the mirror that forces people to see themselves for who they are. When conflict happens, people usually try to prove their point by talking louder, saying more, trying to dominate the space with words. But when one person steps back and stays silent, the whole truth of the other person comes out. Their frustration, their fear, their lack of foundation gets exposed. Silence pulls the mask off because without opposition, they reveal themselves. They start to show cracks in their argument, holes in their confidence, slips in their energy. The person who holds silence becomes the mirror, and the other person is forced to confront what's inside them. In relationships, silence reveals intentions. When you stop reaching out, when you stop explaining, when you go quiet, the truth of the other person's investment shows itself. If they value you, they step up. If they don't, they fade. Silence doesn't push them one way or another. It simply reflects their truth. Words can cover inconsistency for a while, but silence removes that cover. You see who really cares, who really shows up, who really stands beside you. The mirror of silence doesn't judge, it just reflects. In self-growth, silence is where your real truth gets revealed. When you take away distractions, when you're not performing for anyone else, you hear your own voice louder. You start to notice the fears you bury under business, the doubts you hide under achievements, the pain you cover with noise. In silence, there's no escape from yourself. The mirror shows every detail, the good, the bad, the parts you've ignored. And even though it's uncomfortable, that's the only way to grow. Because once you see it, you can face it. Once it's reflected back to you, you can deal with it. That exposure is the beginning of transformation. In leadership, silence tests loyalty and reveals character. When you don't micromanage, when you don't fill every moment with direction, the people around you show their true colors. Some step up, some slack off, some reveal ambition, others reveal weakness. The absence of constant noise forces reality to the surface. The silence becomes the mirror that shows who's real and who's just playing a role. That's why strong leaders value silence. It exposes truth faster than interrogation. Silence can also show you the truth about power. A person who holds silence carries authority without needing to prove it. A person who fills silence with endless talk often exposes insecurity. The mirror of silence makes the difference visible. When someone can stand in quiet confidence, their presence speaks louder than words. When someone can't handle silence, they rush to fill it, and in that rush, they reveal their lack of control. In business and negotiations, silence uncovers motives. When you sit still and let the other person talk, eventually they say what they really want. They reveal fears, limits, priorities, sometimes even things they didn't intend to say. That's why silence is powerful. It exposes the truth behind the words. The mirror reflects back not just what they say, but how they say it, the energy behind it, the cracks in their mask. If you're quiet enough, you see the whole picture. Even in society, silence exposes truth. When people stop speaking out, when voices go quiet, the truth of systems and structures is revealed. Silence shows who benefits, who suffers, who fights for change, and who hides behind comfort. The mirror of silence reflects where real power lies. It shows the difference between those who only talk about justice and those who live it. Silence forces reality to stand naked, without excuses, without the cover of constant noise. Silence can also expose truth in art and creativity in expression, a pause in music, a gap in a poem, a moment of stillness in a performance. All of these act like mirrors. They reflect meaning more deeply than constant sound ever could. The silence between notes makes the music hit harder. The silence in a conversation makes the words matter more. The mirror of silence doesn't just reflect truth, it amplifies it. The reason silence is powerful as a mirror is because it creates space. Space for things to surface, space for reality to breathe, space for truth to come forward without being pushed or pulled. It doesn't manipulate, it doesn't distort, it doesn't distract. It simply reflects what's already there. Sometimes that's the hardest thing for people to face, the fact that silence isn't creating truth, it's just exposing it. When you master silence, you master the mirror. You no longer run from truth. You face it. You no longer get caught up in noise. You see through it. You no longer waste energy proving yourself, because silence reveals what needs to be revealed. It shifts the focus away from performance and onto reality. And once reality is visible, you can move with clarity, with intention, with real strength. Silence makes every move carry more weight. When you hold your tongue, when you don't announce everything, when you sit back and let your actions do the speaking, people pay attention differently. In a world where most people talk too much, overshare too much, explain too much, silence becomes rare. And because it's rare, it carries value. Every move you make after silence feels intentional, feels deliberate, feels heavy. It's not just another action in the noise. It's the action that stands out because it wasn't drowned in words before it arrived. That's why silence is powerful, because it makes everything you do echo louder. Think about someone who's always talking about their goals, their plans, their dreams. After a while, people stop listening. Words lose weight when they're constant and unbacked, but when someone stays quiet, moves in silence, and then suddenly reveals results, the impact hits harder. The silence leading up to that moment makes the move undeniable. It shifts perception from just talking to seriously building. The weight doesn't come from the move alone. It comes from the silence that prepared the ground for it. In business, silence before a decision or before a deal can make people respect your moves more. If you're always telling your strategy, always revealing your next step, you take away the weight of surprise. If you stay silent, the energy builds. People wonder what you're planning, they anticipate, they speculate, and when you finally move, it carries shock and strength. Silence creates suspense, and suspense creates gravity. Every action after silence lands with more force than it would if you announced it ahead of time. In personal growth, silence makes your breakthroughs feel heavier because they're not broadcast in advance. If you're silent about your struggles, silent about your process, and then you show up transformed, the people watching feel the weight of your change. They see the discipline in your silence, the focus it took to work behind the scenes, the patience to not seek attention during the journey. Silence builds credibility. Your growth carries more weight because it wasn't performed for an audience. It was lived for real. In conflict, silence before response makes your words sharper. If you don't speak right away, if you let silence stretch, the other person feels the weight of whatever you're about to say. They know you're not reacting, you're thinking. They know you're not just throwing words back, you're choosing them. And because of that, when you finally speak, your words land with authority. Silence gave them gravity. If you'd spoken too soon, it would have been impulse. By waiting, by holding silence, you made the move calculated, and calculation always weighs more than reaction. Silence in leadership makes every decision carry weight. When a leader doesn't speak constantly, when they're not always filling the room with words, people lean in when they finally do talk. Every word feels like it matters more because silence surrounded it. Leaders who understand this don't waste words. They don't move carelessly. They understand the weight of silence, and they use it to amplify their influence. Their silence teaches patience, teaches presence, teaches that not every moment requires noise. Even in art, silence gives weight to expression. In music, the pause between notes makes the sound after it feels stronger. In storytelling, the pause before the climax makes the revelation feel bigger. In life, silence is the pause that makes your action feel louder. The timing of silence and the timing of movement go hand in hand. Without silence, action feels rushed, diluted, expected. With silence, action feels deliberate, powerful, unexpected. The weight of your move is multiplied by the silence before it. Silence also makes people respect your boundaries without you having to explain them. When you don't argue, when you don't defend, when you don't justify, your silence says more than words ever could. And then when you finally do move, when you finally do respond, the weight of that decision is undeniable. It doesn't feel like a reaction. It feels like a statement. It feels like something you've chosen, something you stand on, something you mean. That's why silence is strength. It builds the foundation that makes your every move matter. On the streets, silence makes your reputation heavier. If you talk about every move, people doubt you. But if you move in silence and let your results show, your name carries weight without you having to force it. People start talking for you. Because your silence created space for your moves to speak louder. The less you announce, the more weight your achievements hold. The less you talk, the more people listen when you finally do. That's the paradox. Silence makes sound heavier. Silence also protects your energy, and because it protects your energy, the moves you do carry more intention. If you waste energy talking, arguing, over-explaining, you dilute your focus. But if you save that energy in silence, when you finally act, it comes from a place of strength that makes the action itself carry more weight because it's backed by preserved power. Silence is storage. It's like keeping your energy in a vault. And when you finally unlock it, the release is undeniable. People underestimate silence because they mistake it for inactivity. But silence is often preparation. It's planning, it's focus, it's sharpening the blade before you swing. And when you finally swing, the silence that came before it makes the strike sharper. Without silence, the move is just another move. With silence, the move becomes a moment that shifts the energy, changes perception, redefines how people see you. That's why silence is not emptiness, it's pressure building, and pressure makes every release heavier. Silence also changes how people measure your words. If you rarely speak, Every sentence feels important. If you're always talking, people forget most of what you say. Silence filters out the unnecessary so that only the necessary remains. When you speak from silence, your words land differently. They're replayed, remembered, repeated. The silence made them stick. The silence turned words into impact. So when you understand silence, you understand weight. You understand that every move doesn't need to be announced. You understand that your silence is not wasted time. It's building momentum. And when you finally choose to act, the silence you held before it multiplies the effect. Every step becomes heavier. Every decision becomes louder. Every action becomes undeniable. Silence is strategy, focus, and power. When you look at the world, the people who really move things, the ones who shift culture, the ones who build something lasting, they understand that silence is not just the absence of words, it's a deliberate move. Strategy is about positioning, timing, and intention, and silence is the space where all of that comes together. You can't build a strategy while you're constantly reacting, constantly talking, constantly distracted. Silence is the ground where strategy is planted. It gives you the room to think, to plot, to adjust. It's the chessboard where you map out your next play without letting the opponent know your hand. Focus grows in silence because distractions are stripped away. When there's no noise, endless conversations, no outside pull, you're forced to see what really matters. In silence, you recognize what you've been chasing that doesn't serve you, what you've been holding onto that doesn't belong, what's been draining your energy without giving you return. Silence sharpens vision like a blade because it separates the essential from the unnecessary. Without silence, focus scatters. With silence, focus tightens. And when your focus is clear, your moves are sharper, your path is straighter, your results are heavier. Power is reclaimed in silence because silence is control. Control over your words, control over your emotions, control over your energy. Anybody can speak, anybody can react, but not everybody can hold back. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes power just sits still and watches. When you choose silence, you choose control, and control is the root of power. Silence is the unspoken reminder that you don't owe everyone your thoughts. You don't owe everyone your plans. You don't owe everyone your energy. By not giving it away freely, you maintain strength. Holding it in silence, you decide when and how to release it. Silence as strategy means you don't let the world know your every move. You don't announce every detail because when you do, you give people the chance to interfere, to copy, to undermine, or to drain you with doubt. Silence protects your blueprint. It allows you to work unseen, to test ideas, to fail quietly, to build without interruption. Then when you emerge, the results speak, and they speak louder because nobody saw them coming. Silence as strategy is the art of keeping your foundation sacred until it's strong enough to stand in the open. Silence as focus means you're not caught in the noise of comparison. You're not wasting time measuring yourself against what everyone else is doing. You're locked in on your own lane, your own mission. Focus requires shutting out voices that don't align with where you're headed, and silence is how you do that. It's not about ignoring the world. It's about tuning it out long enough to tune into yourself. Silence is how you realign with your own vision, how you strengthen your own voice, how you stop letting the opinions of others drown out your purpose. Silence as power means that the less you say, the more people wonder. The less you reveal, the more people speculate. Mystery creates influence because humans are naturally curious about what they don't understand. When you hold silence, people lean in closer. They study you. They respect the weight of your restraint. Your silence makes your presence larger because it forces people to feel it instead of just hear it. And presence is power, sometimes more powerful than words could ever be. In business, silence as strategy separates winners from talkers. The loud ones announce every project before it's done, and when it doesn't happen, they lose credibility. The quiet ones build behind the curtain, and when they finally present, it's already finished. That silence creates authority because results don't need hype, they need impact. Silence is the strategy of execution, not explanation. Silence is the focus of builders who understand that every word spoken too soon can weaken momentum. Silence is the power of letting your work carry the conversation for you. In conflict, silence is strategy because it keeps you from saying things you can't take back. It allows emotions to pass before decisions are made. It shifts power to your side because while the other person is revealing themselves, you're preserving your position. In silence, you gather information. You watch, you listen, you calculate. That's strategy. You don't waste words defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't waste focus on convincing the unconvincible. You don't give away power by letting someone pull you into their chaos. Silence keeps you above that. Silence is also the strategy of timing. Moves made too early fail because the foundation isn't ready. Moves made too late miss the moment. Silence allows you to wait for the exact right moment to act. That patience is strategy. That patience is focus. That patience is power. And when you finally do step, the move hits harder because it's backed by silence that was intentional, silence that was disciplined, silence that was part of the plan. Even spiritually, silence is strategy. It's where you hear guidance, where you connect to a higher source, where you receive vision without interference. In silence, you notice the whispers that get drowned out by noise. You feel direction you can't feel when you're too busy talking or too distracted listening to everyone else. Silence is how you align with something bigger than you. Alignment is the deepest form of power. Silence is not about weakness. It's not about hiding. It's not about absence. Silence is active. It's a choice. It's a weapon. It's a shield. It's the chess move before the checkmate. It's the pause before the impact. It's the ground where ideas are planted, where discipline is proven, where patience is sharpened. Silence is strategy because it's deliberate. Silence is focus because it's selective. Silence is power because it's controlled. And the one who controls silence controls the narrative, the timing, the outcome.